Hello and welcome back, this is ProTaleDev back with another game jam video, and this time it's winter break jam that I'm currently taking part in, and this is going to be the second day of what I did. So the second day of the game jam I decided to work on the visuals, and as you can see immediately it looks completely different. Some of these assets are created from previous game jams, and some of these assets are from yesterday. When I created them when I was working on the second day. Ultimately, these are all assets that I created myself, however, and I think I'm really happy at the initial look of it. I think it looks very icy, very cold, very kind of what I was going for. The environment looks perfect for a snowy area. So if we just get an overview right here, you're immediately going to see what the map looks like. Now this took a very long time. Usually what I do after I've done the foundations of the game on the first day, I'll usually try and do some visual aspects on the second day just to give myself an environment to work my gameplay around. And as you can see, what I've done here is I've created a starting area right here using the assets of these mountainous sharp areas, give it that ice aspect. And then we've got this like pit area that comes down, and that's where the first waves are going to be. Again, it's the same as the first day. We've got these spawn points right here that are going to spawn the enemies. And then once they get enough Commandeer or sweets, as we call it in the UK, you're going to be able to remove this wall right here and move into the different zones. You can see a bunch of these walls that block each area, and these are essentially going to have to be paid for. You've got these sled items that they're going to have to get in different positions that they're going to have to find. Ultimately this did take a very long time to make, and most of the day were just basically visuals. I didn't get a whole lot of time to work on gameplay. So the gameplay is very similar to the gameplay that was shown in the previous day, the very first day. So if we just press play here, you're immediately going to see that we have a character. So I brought in an asset pack from the store. Again, their pack that I used will be, the Christmas pack that I used will be in the credits as usual. And what you can see is we have our character, we're able to turn and spin, so that was one of the only things that I did in code, along with the walls that you had to buy. And then what you're going to do is you're going to jump down here to our first wave of enemies, which have now been changed to penguins. Oh, I was clicking on the wrong screen. And then if I just get enough right here to defeat some of them. These are also going to be the slowest enemies in the game. The penguins are going to be the first initial and very slow enemies, and the whole point of that is that this is just an introduction area. There's even going to be less penguins than I'm just showing right here, so there's going to be a lot less of them. And the whole point is that this is just a start. The penguins are just going to be there to kind of block you and block your movement. There's going to be a lot of them. So it's going to be a high amount of number of penguins versus like say 1 or 2 Santas enemies that we can have. So as you can see, once you've got enough, we've got plenty right here, you'll be able to buy the next room. So if we quickly do that, so once we've bought in the next room, these enemies won't be able to follow us because I've not actually built this area yet in the nav mesh. So as you can see, there are still some issues. I've not finished the map completely. There's some areas that are still need to be covered, like over here. This all needs to be blocked off correctly so that you can't just see through the map. But as you can see, we have, first of all, the flooring. You can see that we've got a ice section right here. You're going to be able to slip and slide on that when you collide into it or when you walk on it. And then you got the normal snow area, which you will be fine on. You've also got obviously this little room that you're going to be able to fight in. These guys are going to be able to run and chase you. Of course, we've got more areas that we can explore. Again, everything just costs 10 candy right now, 10 sweets, and that's just because I'm testing everything. You also don't lose anything at the moment when you buy these doors, when you buy these walls, but you will lose stuff when we've actually not play testing it. Moving on right here, you can also see that our camera does a slight tilt and movement. It might be a little bit too extreme, so I might want to turn that smooth turn a little bit bigger and not as violent as it is, like as aggressive. But essentially I've got that little bit of extra just to add a little bit more movement to the scene as I'm moving around. So right here we can go and pick up our items, and we can start another wave if we wanted to, or we can carry on exploring. Now some of these don't have actual colliders yet, like that one doesn't have a proper collider, or this one. And that's completely fine, because again, it's just, I've only just really started doing the walls. The walls was one of the last things I did. And if I quickly go back into our scene right here and have a look around, you see a bunch of enemies that have spawned, all of our penguins right here. And we've got the overall world that we can go and buy and explore. And depending on what area, the size of the area that you're about to go into, depending on the size will determine how much it's going to cost you to go into that area. So buying this wall is going to cost you a lot more than, let's say, this wall right here, but this wall will still cost more than, let's say, this one, since it doesn't open up to a more advanced area. This one is going to cost the most. It's the biggest area, and it's probably going to be the final area you buy. You're going to need to be able to kill, or should I say defeat, more powerful enemies in order to earn enough sweets to get to this point. Essentially, this is where the factory is going to be. There's going to be a small factory. When I say factory, it's just going to be a building and a bunch of enemies there, and an environment, so trees and stuff. This is one of the more recent additions that I didn't get to finish yet. But overall, I really like the landscape. I'm really happy with it. I think it works really well, and I think it's going to be perfect when it's... So the next day, the third day, the plan is to work on enemies. We're going to introduce a bunch of enemies. We're going to close off this area around the edges. We're going to make sure all collisions are in, and we're going to introduce a bunch of different enemies, and then hopefully get enough time to do different weapons as well. Now the theme was also to stay warm, and I'm going to have a meter which forces the player to have to sort of defend an area or stay in an area specifically. So what I mean by that is we're going to have something like a campfire or a light or something like that to keep you warm. We're going to have an ice meter that goes down, and then when it gets too critical, you'll get either slower, you'll lose stamina, your ability to throw snowballs will get slower and slower, and eventually you'll start taking damage when it's low enough. So if it hits 0 and you start getting hypothermic, you're going to start freezing and you're going to start taking damage. So there's going to be these campfires spread around the map, which are going to force you to hold in those areas and try and defend as best you can. And hopefully some of the weaponry that you might be able to get will help you defend. Once you're doing that, of course, you're going to have to go and collect all the items. Once you've collected all the items, a door will appear, and I haven't decided where it's going to appear. It's either going to appear at the start where you began, or it's going to appear somewhere else, perhaps here. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the second day. So now moving on. So this has been ProTaleDev, and I'll see you next time.